The deep dark. A vast expanse of endless, featureless void, so dim and smothering that were you to step foot inside without a tether to guide you back, you would quickly lose yourself in its indistinguishable uniformity. The deep dark is a space that lies just underneath the fabric of our world's reality, and until very recently was thought to be almost entirely inaccessible to those of us existing on this, the primal plane. It was all thanks to the efforts of one Morton Ralbert, quantum mechanic and chief engineer of principal physics, that the construction of a key gate was able to be completed just last month, on June 18th of 2023. Ralbert's key gate, though risky to establish, has since proven to be a reliable and, more importantly, reusable approach that has allowed living creatures to pass between the veil from this world to the next, while entirely eliminating the element of chance that made the deep dark so inaccessible in the first place. At this point, we have been aware of the existence of the deep dark for centuries, and it has long since left a lasting impression that has affected societies around the world. In fact, even those who have never been themselves still display some form of psychological impact brought about by this phenomena that has been passed down from peer to peer for generations. Do you know why you're afraid of the dark? That deep and basal instinct that leaves you feeling unsettled when out alone on the blackest of nights, as though something were there, watching, awaiting you in the shadows. Prior to the opening of Ralbert's key gates, the only possible way someone could pass from the primal plane to the deep dark was via a non-predictable random chance event. They would need to be standing in the right place at just the right moment in time, and even then, there'd be only a slight possibility that they might momentarily be snapped from one plane to the next and back again through the build-up and release of heavy potential energy. This came to colloquially be known as flickering, and is a process that is, interestingly, very similar to the way in which positive and negative charges build and polarize just before lightning strikes. Of the few recorded accounts that exist from those claiming to have passed even momentarily to the deep dark, all of them seem to share one very familiar sentiment, a sense of anxious urgency, the desire to escape. One such account even goes so far as to describe
a multitude of forms and shapes moving in the ether, just beyond my scope of view, and yet still close enough that I can barely make out their riding. Like a gaseous cloud drifting steadily alongside me. But when I turn to get a better look, I could almost swear they recede, as though taunting me from the gloom. And when I dare to look away again, I can feel them. They grow ever closer.
Since the opening of the new key gate, there have been a handful of expeditions launched in order to investigate these accounts. However, no further anomalies have since been recorded. Although thus far there haven't been any documented incidents of injury or loss relating to the deep dark, it's this very fear that has deterred many from exploring the possibilities brought about by Ralbert's newest innovation. There are those who disagree with the construction of the key gate, even going so far as to say it should be powered off and permanently disassembled. So why leave the gates open at all? If there's so much contention and uncertainty surrounding the deep dark, then what would be the benefit of delving further into the endless void? Thanks to the efforts of the first two expedition teams, we have since learned that the deep dark handles time and relative distance differently than we would normally know it to operate here on the primal plane. Researchers who traveled miles over the course of multiple hours, and in one instance even days, resurfaced again here to find that only seconds had passed, and that they had moved many times the distance traveled while in the void. It is the hope of many who are currently experimenting with Ralbert's new key gate technology to find a way to harness these properties for real-world applications. Just imagine if you could pass through a gate and travel no more than 5 feet before emerging on the other side at a friend's house on the complete opposite end of the world, all within a few short seconds. Or if you could take a day or two in the deep dark in order to catch up on work, only to find that when you resurfaced from the void, hardly an hour had passed. The ability to buy time, or to travel as far as quickly, would be nearly invaluable to anyone. And with a zero sum of total recorded incidents, the drawbacks seem to be very few and far in between. Apart from that, the deep dark seems to be an area incapable of sustaining long-term life. Plants cannot grow. The sun never shines. There is complete absence of any form of water. and it is perpetually cold, hanging around a brisk 42 degrees Fahrenheit, or 5 degrees Celsius. The only thing that does appear to remain in such a desolate place is air. Clean, uncontaminated oxygen. Though research has thus far determined that the deep dark is incapable of creating its own oxygen, and instead has been receiving this air for centuries from the primal plane during the momentary flickers that open and close like a tap, letting loose a rush of water before switching off again. It is for this exact reason that researchers have officially labeled the deep dark an uninhabitable zone, and have refuted all accounts claiming otherwise, stating that these paranoias are simply a byproduct of long-term exposure to the area. Similar to the side effects that often accompany long-term exposure to sensory deprivation chambers. Things such as hallucinations and perceptual disturbances may not be uncommon, but should be considered self-generated and not actual. As such, limited exposure is recommended for all those who intend to enter into the deep dark. Still, there are those who hold suspicions over the reliability of this information, and who believe that by leaving the key gates open, we are exposing ourselves to the possibility of a lurking danger, despite all of the research. So, has the deep dark just gotten a bad rap due to its eerie and foreboding appearance? Or are all of the fears well-founded? At this point, only time will tell. Let me know what you think about this down in the comments below. Is it a bad idea to risk leaving the key gates open, even after all of the recent findings? Or would it be in all of our best interests to continue exploring the deep dark?